Matthew 8, verses 24, 25, and 26. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being covered by the waves, but Jesus himself was asleep. And they came to him and woke him, saying, Save us, Lord, we are perishing. He said to them, Why are you afraid, men of little faith? Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. When I was playing intramural basketball for my college, I one time went for the ball and jammed my finger. Now, I grew up playing basketball, so I jammed my finger plenty of times. This finger jam was pretty hard and hurt quite a bit. And if you don't know, a jammed finger will cause your finger to swell up at the knuckle and also up at the top knuckle. All of that really hurts. It's very painful, and it doesn't look great either. Well, so there is a cure for a jammed finger, and that is you have to unjam it. You have to pull it with great force. It hurts a lot, but it does begin the healing process. It allows for room for your finger to breathe a little bit. Well, I had suffered with this jammed finger for about 7 days, and I pulled it right after it was jammed, and it stayed jammed. I didn't pull hard enough, I guess. And so I pulled harder, and I pulled harder. For a week, I pulled and pulled and pulled, actually about 10 days. And after that 10 days, my mother and some friends of mine, they all just compelled me, go to the doctor and find out what's going on with your finger. It's still swollen. We don't know that it's just a regular jam. So I went to the doctor, and he took an x-ray, and he came back and he said, well, so your finger's not jammed. It's actually broken. And all of that pulling that you did, all of that pulling apart, unjamming it, wasn't actually helping it, wasn't actually getting it ready, but it was in fact hurting the situation even more. So what I'd like to do, the doctor said, is I'd like to perform a little surgery on your finger. And what'll happen here is it'll be painful, you'll have a cast for a long time, it's a little surgery. However, you won't have arthritis later on in life. And that's what compelled me to go ahead and have that surgery. Have you ever done that? Have you ever had a time where you self-diagnosed something about you, and guess what? You were wrong. And so instead of helping the situation, your self-diagnosis actually hurt the situation. Well, that's what happens with the disciples here in this boat. This boat full of fishermen that are used to the winds and the waves and the rain and the storm and the sea. This boat full of fishermen, they see a storm come up. And this is such a storm that causes them to fear greatly. They are worried. They are terrified, in fact. What's really interesting that is, of course, Jesus, he's asleep in the boat. He's not affected by the storm. He has the storm under control. If a bully was coming at me and I was worried about it, I wouldn't be able to sleep. However, if a bully is coming at me and I'm so confident that he can do no harm to me, I would be able to sleep right through it. That's what Jesus has done. He's sleeping through the storm, but it greatly affects the disciples. And so they go to him and they say, aren't you concerned at all about us? Look at what is happening around us. Wake up, Jesus. The storm is all over us. It is surrounding us. We are perishing, verse 25 says, and they pray this prayer, save us, for we are perishing. We're in trouble. The storm is all around, and that's a self-diagnosis. That is the disciples looking at the storm and saying the most troubling thing for us in this world right now is this storm. And Jesus, he heals their fear by working on their faith. Here's how he does it. Really three things I want to point out about those three verses. One, Jesus responds to the disciples. He doesn't respond to the storm. He sleeps through the storm. He responds to the disciples. You know what that means? That means Jesus responds to you. That is the nature of his love. He's not going to deal with our circumstances. He's going to deal with you. He loves you. He wants you. He walks with you. So he's not going to concern himself with all of these things that we think are trouble. He's going to look at you. He's going to talk about your heart. And that's exactly what it does with the disciples. First thing he does, he responds to the disciples. He's going to respond to you. The second thing he does, though, is he begins to work at faith in them. So here's what happens. He looks at them. They say, "Save us, Lord, we are perishing." And Jesus says, "Why are you afraid? You're men of little faith. Let's talk about your faith. Let's deal with your faith. Let's work on your faith right here. This is not a situation where the storm is going to hurt you. What's really hurting you is the matter of the heart. Let's work on your heart. Let's work on your faith." That's how Jesus heals our fear with faith, is that he works on our faith specifically. Again, he's sleeping through the storm. He's dealing with you. The third thing I want to point out is the fact that the storm still goes on. So you've got to look at the timeline of this situation. Here's how it goes. First, the disciples come to him and they say, "There are storms around us. We're perishing. Help us. Rescue us." Second, Jesus says, "Let's talk about your faith." And after he has that part of the conversation, he looks up at the storm and he says, "Shh. Be still, storm." And the reason I like that so much is that I've gone through storms. I, like the disciples, have said many times, "Oh, I'm perishing. God, I need your rescue. Save me, please. Help me, please." And haven't we all done that? Haven't we all made that bargain with God at one point in our lives? Where we would say, "God, if you would just save me from these circumstances, this situation, then I will go to church or give or whatever." Jesus looks at his disciples. He talks about their faith. And then, as if to emphasize the point on faith, he says, "Watch what faith can do." And he looks at the storm. Shh. I don't know. It doesn't say necessarily what happens next, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jesus then goes back to sleep, resting and calm in the fact that he has addressed the one most important thing in their lives, their faith. And he would address that with you. Today, you may be in a storm. And if you are, hear the words of Jesus to his disciples. Let's work on your faith. In fact, let me show you what faith can do. Church, God bless you. Hope you have a great day. Remember his love.